Welcome to the International News Program. Here are the details. President Vladimir Putin on March 16 urged Russian billionaires and businesses to invest in new technology, production lines, and materials to help overcome Western efforts to strangle the country's economy. Putin informed that, despite those efforts of the West, many Western companies have decided to stay in Russia, instead of withdrawing to the country or elsewhere. These are brave and smart companies. He affirmed, the Russian economy needs new vitality, new faith, and new will to promote the achievements in 2022. In the process of building this new economy, the business community and the private sector play a very important role. It is known that in 2022, contrary to the predictions of many parties, the Russian economy will only shrink by 2% of GDP and still basically stand after thousands of sanctions. In 2023, the situation is forecasted to be better. China is concerned about the escalation of the war in Ukraine. Hopefully Moscow and Kyiv will hold peace talks in the near future, senior Chinese diplomat Qin Gang told his Ukrainian counterpart in a phone call on March 16. China did not condemn Russia's attack on Ukraine, but called on both sides to de-escalate and gradually move towards a complete ceasefire, in a 12-point initiative on a political solution to the crisis. The plan was well received by both sides, calling for the protection of civilians and respect for each other's sovereignty. Qin Gang told Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. China hopes all sides will keep calm, adopt a rational and restrained attitude, and resume peace talks as soon as possible. China wants Ukraine and Russia not to shut down political solutions, no matter how difficult and challenging the situation is. Kuleba said the two discussed the importance of the principle of territorial integrity. I stress the importance of the peace formula from President Volodymyr Zelensky to end the aggression and restore peace in Ukraine, he said. Ukraine has repeatedly said that any plan to end the conflict must be tied to a Russian withdrawal like the 1991 border. Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to visit Russia and meet President Vladimir Putin next week. Xi could also hold an online meeting with President Zelensky. Analysts say that China will find it difficult to convince Russia and Ukraine to come to the negotiating table but can act as a support channel to create momentum towards negotiations. Russia launched many powerful weapons in the war. Recently, TASS news agency quoted an army official as saying that T-90M Proryv main battle tanks had foiled a raid attempt by a Ukrainian reconnaissance group in the direction of Lyman in the northeastern province of Kharkiv. Denis Avrin, a spokesman for Russian forces fighting in eastern Ukraine, told TASS, the drone detected a reconnaissance group of Ukraine's 81st Airborne Brigade in the direction of Lyman. After that, the crew of the T-90M Proryv tank fired many shots, aiming at the target at close range. The enemy takes great damage and is pushed back to the original position. T-90M Proryv is a powerful improved version of the main Russian T-90 tank. It was equipped with another completely new turret and a more powerful engine. Proryv is equipped with a new aiming system that allows the weapon to be used at any time of the day. One advantage of the T-90M is that it can share data with other vehicles in real time. The T-90M tank is significantly superior to the T-90 by its combat effectiveness. T-90M Proryv 3 uses a powerful diesel engine that allows it to travel at a speed of 72 km per hour. It is also equipped with advanced explosive reactive armor layers called Relikt. T-90M is equipped with the Shtor-M defense system, which effectively protects against the opponent's guided anti-tank missiles in the context of Western anti-tank missiles, causing many challenges for the equipment. Russian border. The main battle tank T-90M Proryv is one of the most advanced tanks in the Russian arsenal. Thanks to its reliable protection and modern fire control system, the T-90M tank caused a lot of damage to the opponent. Although Russia possesses a series of powerful weapons, in the midst of fierce fighting, British military intelligence continues to state that Russia is forced to use old and poor quality ammunition in Ukraine. The British Ministry of Defence on March 14 said that Russia is likely to be searching and making use of its old ammunition stockpile. London said the Russians accepted the use of ammunition that they had previously judged unsuitable for modern warfare. According to the British side, the shortage of artillery shells has worsened in the past few weeks. If the problem does not improve, Russia will have to calculate the option of using artillery shells alternately between the fronts, where one place fires, another rests. The British Ministry of Defence added that Russia was conducting a long-planned spring offensive operation. However, it was not possible to make a breakthrough and control more large territories, all because of a lack of ammunition. This is almost certainly why no Russian unit has made great strides in recent times. The Ministry of Defense in London believes that the Russian government is increasing pressure on defense companies that do not meet production targets. According to the British side, this shows that Russia is increasing the fundamentals of the war economy to the military industry, because Moscow knows that arms production capacity remains a key constraint of military efforts in Ukraine. According to Western analysts, Russia was forced to use a series of old weapons from the Soviet era in the war in Ukraine. This includes antique tanks and less accurate missiles. The British Ministry of Defense said in early January that Russia was introducing advanced military technology to the world, but at the same time, Russian troops in Ukraine had to rely on old equipment. Moscow does not normally comment on the British Ministry of Defence's daily intelligence updates. The Kremlin insists that it has the necessary means and equipment to accomplish the goals of the special military operation. Russia also claims that its economy is resistant to Western sanctions, including its defense industry, which continues to grow. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has criticized the U.S. for ignoring the truth about the limited airspace over the Black Sea. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on March 15 that, in comments made by U.S. officials about the downing of an armed drone over the Black Sea, Washington ignored the fact that Russia had established a restricted access area in the airspace area. Speaking on Russian state radio, Lavrov confirmed that Russia had established a restricted flight zone in the Black Sea since the beginning of its special military operation in Ukraine, and that the United States knew it well. According to the Washington Post, the Moscow side declared the large airspace around the Crimean Peninsula to be a no-fly zone. However, international law stipulates that foreign aircraft can operate freely in international airspace and no country is allowed to set up a restricted area outside its airspace. In addition, Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said on March 15 that the U.S. drone was headed for the Russian border before it crashed into the sea. U.S. drones have come close to Crimea, the peninsula Russia annexed in 2014 despite opposition from Kyiv, and the West Ukraine insists that it will take back the peninsula through military means, although Russia has warned that it will use all available means to protect it. India on March 16 approved the purchase of missiles, helicopters, artillery and electronic warfare systems worth $8.5 billion to add more defense equipment. The Defense Acquisition Council, DAC, the highest-level government body that approves procurement for the Indian Army, has approved orders worth Rs. 705 billion, equivalent to $8.52 billion, the Defense Ministry said. All orders will be placed with the Indian company, in line with the government's push to support domestic defense manufacturing. Threatened by nuclear powers like China and Pakistan, plus tensions along the disputed Himalayan border, India is looking to modernize its stockpile of mainly Soviet-era military equipment. Procurement for the Navy, approved at nearly $6 billion, the most in the package, comes after India expressed concerns last year about the Chinese Navy's operations in the Indian Ocean. The Navy's procurement list includes 200 BrahMos missiles, 50 multi-role helicopters and several electronic warfare systems. BrahMos is a hypersonic missile with a range of 300 kilometers jointly developed by India and Russia. All three services of India have used different versions of the missile for more than a decade. The DAC also approved the production of marine diesel engines, which will be India's first. DAC also approved the proposal of the Air Force, wanting to buy some long-range backup weapons for use on Sukhoi 30 Mki fighter aircraft. Besides, there are 307 towed 155mm cannons, along with a number of other mobile support vehicles. An agreement on the normalization of relations between Serbia and Kosovo this year is entirely possible. A U.S. Special Envoy said so on March 16. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and Kosovo Prime Minister Albin Kurti will meet in the North Macedonian lake resort of Ohrid on March 18, under the auspices of the European Union, to discuss how to implement the agreement set by the European Union. Western support, in order to normalize relations. Gabriel Escobar, the U.S. Special Envoy for the Western Balkans, told reporters in Belgrade, after meeting President Vučić, "I'd like to see an agreement this year. I think it's entirely possible. Positive signals are emerging." On February 28, the leaders of Kosovo and Serbia agreed in Brussels that no further discussion of the agreement was needed, but negotiations on its implementation were needed. Speaking in Tirana, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said he hoped Serbia-Kosovo would take a constructive approach. Escobar added that the two sides should focus on normalizing relations, not on mutual recognition which Kosovo has long demanded. Kosovo declared independence in 2008, after a deadly war with Serbia. To this day, Serbia still considers Kosovo as one of its provinces. Under the new agreement, Serbia will not recognize Kosovo as an independent country, but will recognize official documents such as passports, degrees, and license plates, and will not impede Kosovo's membership in any international organization. In Tirana, the Albanian Prime Minister described the proposal as the best possible for Kosovo and Serbia. So far, Serbia has relied on its major ally, Russia, a permanent veto member of the United Nations Security Council, and other countries including the 5 EU members, to prevent Kosovo from joining the United Nations. Mr. Escobar also said that Kosovo, which has a predominantly Albanian population, would have to ensure a degree of self-governance for its Serb community under the terms of a 2013 EU-funded agreement in Brussels. Kosovo's majority Albanian leaders have long argued that such a model would give Belgrade enormous influence in their country, while Serbs say it is necessary to protect their rights. According to Escobar, the agreement between Serbia and Kosovo will create an opportunity for economic cooperation and EU integration, not only for the two countries but also for the rest of the Western Balkans, including Montenegro, North Macedonia, Bosnia and Albania. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad said on March 16 that he would only meet his Turkish counterpart Tayyip Erdogan when Ankara fully withdraws its troops from northern Syria and restores the border to pre-war status. Turkey is the biggest political and military ally of the Syrian opposition, which controls the last rebel stronghold in northwestern Syria. Ankara has set up dozens of bases and deployed thousands of troops in northern Syria to prevent the Russian-backed Syrian army from retaking the area. Visiting Moscow for talks with President Vladimir Putin, Assad told Sputnik television that there was no point in meeting Erdogan until the illegal Turkish occupation was over. This concerns Turkey's need to be ready, and without any reason, not to withdraw from Syrian territory and to stop supporting extremist organizations, Assad continued. This is the only situation to have a meeting between me and Erdogan. What is the value of the meeting? Why do we do it if it doesn't work out in relation to the war in Syria? It is known that the defense ministers of the two countries met at the end of last year in Russia, to negotiate to restore relations between the two countries. At a time when relations between Ankara and Damascus were low, Erdogan once called Assad a terrorist and there could be no peace in Syria if Assad was in office. While Assad called Erdogan a thief for stealing Syria's land. Some Turkish and Russian officials said they were preparing to meet the deputy foreign ministers of the three countries, namely Turkey, Syria and Iran, before the foreign ministers officially meet. Assad acknowledged Russia's role in encouraging the resumption of relations between Syria and Turkey. Assad said the Russian military presence in Syria was legal, as his government demanded. Desperate to end its political and economic isolation, Iran has been trying for the past 2 years to restore ties with its longtime rival, Saudi Arabia, an influential oil power in the Middle East. Last September, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, lost patience with the slow pace of negotiations, and convened his diplomatic team to discuss how to speed up the process, leading to Chinese involvement. Beijing's covert role in the breakthrough announced last week has shaken Middle Eastern nations where the United States has for decades been the main mediator. An Iranian diplomat involved in the negotiations said, "China has shown that it is willing to help both Tehran and Riyadh close the gap, and fix the unresolved issues in the negotiations in Oman and Iraq." The agreement to normalize diplomatic relations was signed after 7 years of tension. For Saudi Arabia, the deal means improved security. In 2019, the kingdom blamed Iran for attacks on oil facilities which caused half of the supply to be lost. Iran denies involvement. The Iran-aligned Houthi group in Yemen has claimed responsibility for the attacks. Saudi Finance Minister Mohammed Al-Jadaan said that Saudi investments in Iran can now happen quickly. Saudi Arabia severed ties with Iran in 2016, after its embassy in Tehran was attacked by protesters over Riyadh's execution of a prominent Shiite cleric. The hostility between the two powers is said to jeopardize stability in the Middle East, fueling conflicts in Yemen, Syria and Lebanon. Asked if the deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran could be eroded in the near term, Wang Di, a Chinese diplomat involved in the Beijing talks, told reporters, "Reconnecting is a long process. There can be no expectation that all problems will be solved overnight. It is important that both sides have sincerity to improve relations." Saudi Arabia, Washington's key ally in the Middle East, began seeking dialogue with the Islamic Republic of Iran 2 years ago in Iraq and Oman. This led to an important event in December 2022, when Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Riyadh during a bilateral meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Xi expressed his desire to mediate dialogue between Saudi Arabia and Iran. A Saudi official said, "The Crown Prince welcomes this and promises to send documents summarizing previous rounds of dialogue to China, along with what we think, and how the talks can be resumed." In February 2023, Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi visited Beijing. The Chinese side conveyed Riyadh's proposals and was accepted by the Iranian side. China will set up a new financial supervisory body, run by the party's Central Committee. Chinese state media reported this on March 16. This is part of a reorganization of the governing bodies to give direct control and supervision to the party over financial affairs. The creation of the Central Finance Committee, which would entail the dissolution of the state-run Financial Stability and Development Commission, FSDC, a powerful body created in 2017 led by the former Deputy Prime Minister Liu He, to manage and limit risks in China's complex financial system. The new body, responsible for the design, development and oversight of everything in the financial sector, as well as strengthens the unified leadership of the financial work. To strengthen the party's ideological and political role in China's overall financial system, a separate Central Financial Work Committee will also be established. The reorganization of financial institutions, which comes after President Xi Jinping begins his third term, parallels his role as party leader and Central Military Commission, making him the most powerful leader of China since Mao Zedong. Yan Wang, chief China strategist at Alpine Macro, a global investment firm based in Hong Kong, said, "The line between the party and the government has become blurred, so there is no problem about new financial watchdogs going against what the party wants." The media has previously reported that China is planning to revive a party financial watchdog which operated from 1998 to 2003, to strengthen political control over the sector. The body will be led by a member of the Politburo Standing Committee, the party's top decision-making body headed by Xi. The watchdog's resurgence comes as China's leaders want to give the economy new impetus after 3 years of being severely constrained by the COVID-19 pandemic, dismal real estate and weak demand for exports. Wang continued, "From an investor's point of view, the short-term impact of the reform is unlikely to be significant. Promoting growth is clearly the top priority, so these changes are unlikely to be able to turn the market upside down." A detailed reform plan for state institutions was also announced during the annual parliamentary meeting that ended on March 17. Under the direction of the government, led by new Premier Li Qiang, China will set up a national financial regulation authority, tasked with regulating the $57 trillion financial industry. With the exception of the securities sector, the old banking and insurance regulator will be abolished. Some central bank and securities regulator functions will be transferred to the new financial regulator.